If you have a Toyota, you definitely want to listen up this afternoon. The automaker is recalling more than 43,000 of the 2024 Tundra.
Your brand new Toyota Tundra may have left the factory with loose metal already grinding away inside the engine, and Toyota knows it. They have recalled more than 270,000 of these trucks because the engine can tear itself apart with no warning, and here is what should make you furious. Toyota's new fix is to let a computer decide whether you get a new engine or get sent home and told it is fine. You did not put the metal in there. They did. So why is the most trusted truck in America failing like this, and why is Toyota fighting to avoid replacing what it broke? Make sure you subscribe. Because I started this channel for one reason, to share what dealerships and car makers don't want you to hear. With your support, I can keep making these videos. Now let's get into it. Let's start with why this one hurts more than any other truck story you have heard this year. Because a bad engine in a truck nobody trusted is just a bad engine. But a bad engine in a Toyota is a broken promise. Understand what a Tundra buyer actually is. He is a person who looked at the flashier, cheaper, more powerful trucks from the domestic brands, and he turned them all down on purpose. He paid more, sometimes thousands more, and he often waited on a list to do it. All for one thing: the Toyota name, the reputation, the bulletproof, boring, runs-forever reputation that took Toyota 50 years to build. That buyer was not chasing horsepower or a big screen. He was buying insurance against exactly the kind of nightmare that is now happening to him. And that is what makes this such a betrayal. Toyota did not just sell these people a truck. They sold them the one thing Toyota was supposed to guarantee. And then they failed to deliver it at the worst possible place, deep inside the engine. So here's what is actually going on under the hood. The heart of the newest Tundra is a twin-turbo V6, a small, complicated, high-pressure engine that Toyota built to replace the big, simple, naturally breathing V8 that came before it. And that engine has a defect, and it is not a mystery, because Toyota admitted the cause in its own recall paperwork: machining debris, metal garbage left behind inside the engine during manufacturing. That leftover metal works its way down and lodges into the #1 main bearing, one of the critical parts that lets the engine spin. And over time, especially when you actually work the truck the way a truck is supposed to be worked, that debris chews the bearing apart. Then you get knocking, you get rough running, and then you can get a sudden, total loss of power, the engine simply letting go while you drive. This is not a truck that wears out over the years. This is a truck that left the factory already broken, with the seeds of its own failure sealed inside the engine, waiting. And here's the cruel twist in how it fails. The debris does its worst damage exactly when you use the truck the way a truck is meant to be used. When you tow, when you haul, when you load it up and work it hard, the engine runs under more load and more heat, and that is when the trapped metal grinds through the bearing fastest. So the man who bought his Tundra to actually do truck things, to pull a trailer or a boat or a load of gravel, is the one most likely to blow the engine. The guy who babies it and never asks anything of it might skate by. Think about how backwards that is. You bought a full-size truck to work, and using it for its one job is what kills it. And it gives you almost nothing to go on before it happens. No long warning, no months of obvious trouble, just a healthy-sounding engine one minute and a dead one the next, often on the highway, sometimes with a trailer swinging behind you. That is not a defect you can drive around carefully. It is a trap that springs hardest on the people who use the truck honestly. And this is not a handful of trucks. The recalls tied to this engine have grown and grown, campaign after campaign since 2024. It started with around 102,000 vehicles. Then Toyota added well over another 100,000, then tens of thousands more. By the latest round, the total number of engines caught up in this mess climbed past 270,000 vehicles. And it is not just the Tundra. The same engine sits in the big Lexus SUVs, the LX and the GX, luxury machines where people paid even more money for the same defect. Picture a family in suburban Denver that finally bought the Tundra they had wanted for years, the reward for a decade of saving, and within months they are reading a recall letter telling them the engine might be full of metal. A Toyota dealer outside of Sacramento will tell you the phone calls got so bad that his service team stopped dreading the complaints and just started expecting them. That is how widespread this became. The safest truck in America recalled by the hundreds of thousands for an engine that was contaminated before anyone ever turned the key. But here's where the story turns from a defect into something that should genuinely make you angry, because the way Toyota is handling the fix is worse than the defect itself. And I need you to stay with me, because this next part is the reason owners are so furious they are trying to hand these trucks back. When this all started, Toyota did the honorable thing, or at least it looked that way. For the first wave of trucks, the remedy was a brand new engine. If your engine was caught up in this, they would replace the whole thing. That is expensive, that is the right call, and for a while it looked like Toyota was standing behind its name the way it always claimed it would. But then the bill for all those engines started to add up, and Toyota quietly changed the plan. Now, instead of simply replacing every affected engine, Toyota is rolling out an inspection. Dealers run a piece of software that looks at the number 1 main bearing and pulls data from how the truck has been driven. And that software decides whether your engine gets replaced or whether you get sent home with a pat on the back and told it is probably fine. Read that again. A piece of software now decides whether the metal debris in your engine is a big enough problem to earn you a new one. Think about what that actually means for you as the owner. You did not put the debris in there. Toyota did, at the factory. And now Toyota has appointed itself the judge of whether that debris will destroy your engine or not, using a test that conveniently saves Toyota an enormous amount of money if it decides you are fine. The owners see exactly what this is. The Tundra owner community has openly begged Toyota to reconsider, arguing that the inspection is not about protecting the customer, it is about slowing down the financial bleeding for Toyota. And they have a terrifying question that Toyota has not really answered. What happens when the software says your engine is fine? You drive off, and then 2 years later, out of warranty, the debris finally chews through that bearing and the engine grenades on the highway. Who pays then? You do. The debris was always there. The software just decided to gamble with your engine instead of fixing it. That is not standing behind your product. That is finding a cheaper way to walk away from it. And think about what this does to the value of your truck, because this is the part that hits your wallet even if the engine never blows. The moment a truck is known to have one of these debris-prone engines, its resale value takes a hit, whether or not it has failed yet. A buyer looking at a used Tundra from these years now has to wonder if he is inheriting a ticking problem, so he offers less, or he walks away entirely. So the owner who was told by the software that his engine is fine is now stuck with a truck that the market treats as damaged goods anyway. He cannot fully trust it, and he cannot sell it for what he paid, because everybody else does not trust it either. He is trapped in the middle, holding a truck that Toyota will not replace and the used market will not fully pay for. And the people who got the actual engine replacement are not exactly celebrating either, because a brand new truck that needed its whole engine swapped in the first year carries that history for the rest of its life. There is no clean outcome here for the owner. Every road leads back to a truck worth less than the one he thought he bought. And it gets worse, because after all this time, Toyota still does not have a real answer. One of these engine recalls has been postponed again, pushed back because the company, 4 years into this problem, still does not have a solid fix ready to go. 4 years. Toyota, the company that built its entire empire on getting the details right, on quality, on never letting you down, has been wrestling with this same engine defect for 4 years and is still reaching for inspections and delays instead of a clean solution. A Toyota service manager in the Tampa area put it bluntly to his own customers. He said he had never in his career seen the company this unsure of how to fix one of its own engines. When the most confident car maker on earth starts stalling, that tells you how deep this really goes. Now, if the engine were the only problem, that would already be enough to walk away. But it is not the only problem, and the second one can move the truck when you do not want it to: the transmission. The newest Tundras use a 10-speed automatic, and owners have been reporting a long list of complaints about it: harsh and delayed shifts, jerking, hesitation, strange noises, and unpredictable power delivery, a lot of it showing up at very low mileage on trucks that are basically brand new. But the part that should really get your attention is a separate safety recall covering more than 268,000 Tundra and Tundra hybrid trucks, because a transmission component might not fully disengage when you shift into neutral. In plain English, that means the truck can creep forward on its own when you think it is sitting in neutral and going nowhere. Imagine putting your truck in neutral, stepping out for a second, and having it roll forward on its own toward a person or another car. That is not a comfort complaint. That is a crash risk that Toyota had to recall 250,000 trucks to address. A Tundra owner in rural Texas described exactly the kind of everyday moment that turns dangerous: backing a trailer down a boat ramp, shifting to neutral for a second to reset, and feeling the truck try to creep on its own. On a wet ramp, with people standing around, that half second of a truck moving when it should be still is how someone gets hurt. And remember, these are not worn-out old trucks with 200,000 miles on them. Owners are reporting the harsh shifts, the jerking, and the hesitation on nearly new trucks, sometimes within the first few thousand miles. So on top of an engine that might be full of debris, you have a transmission that many owners say does not shift the way a brand new truck should, and one specific fault serious enough to be a genuine rolling hazard. Two of the most important systems in the truck, the engine and the transmission, both under a cloud at the same time, on the vehicle that was supposed to be the most trouble-free choice on the entire lot. And then there is the part that shows you just how much Toyota is hoping you do not connect the dots: the hybrid. The iForce Max hybrid version of the Tundra uses the very same twin-turbo V6 at its core. the same engine family with the same debris problem. And yet Toyota left the hybrids out of the engine recall. So you have a whole population of Tundra hybrid owners driving around with an engine built on the same troubled foundation, told, in effect, do not worry about it, while their gas-only neighbors are getting recall letters for what looks like the same basic hardware. If you owned that hybrid, would you feel safe? Or would you feel like you were quietly being left off the list to keep the recall numbers down? A lot of those owners are asking that exact question, and Toyota has not given them a comfortable answer. And here is why that silence matters. The hybrid version is the more expensive, top-of-the-line choice, the one people stretch the furthest to buy, and it is built around the same troubled engine family. So the buyer who spent the most is being told the least. He got no recall letter, no inspection, no replacement, and no clear promise that the debris problem cannot reach him. He is just supposed to trust that the same factory that left metal in the gas engine somehow got it right in his. That is a lot of faith to ask from a customer who already paid a premium specifically so he would never have to have this kind of faith in the first place. When a company handles a defect by drawing the recall lines as narrowly as it can, you have to ask whether those lines are about the engineering or about the accounting. So here is the real story sitting underneath all of it. The thing Toyota will never put in an advertisement. This did not happen because Toyota forgot how to build a reliable truck. It happened because Toyota walked away from the very thing that made it reliable in the first place. The old Tundra used a big, simple, naturally breathing V8, an engine that made modest power and just ran forever because there was so little to go wrong. Toyota threw that away and replaced it with a smaller, far more complicated twin-turbo V6, an engine squeezed hard to make big power and hit tougher fuel and emissions numbers. More turbochargers, more heat, more pressure, more parts, more complexity, and far less room for error. And in the rush to build these new, complicated engines fast enough, the quality control that used to be Toyota's entire identity slipped, and the debris that never should have made it out of the factory started making it into your truck. Toyota sold you the reputation of the old bulletproof V8, while quietly handing you a fragile, complicated new engine that had not earned one bit of that trust. The reputation was the product, and they spent it. That is the cruelty at the center of this whole thing, and it is worth sitting with for a second. The Tundra buyer is the most loyal, most careful buyer in the entire truck market. He is the guy who did everything right. He did his research, he paid the premium, he chose the boring, safe, sensible option specifically so he would never be in this position. He is the last person who deserved to get burned. And he is exactly the one holding the bag. He paid extra for peace of mind, and Toyota handed him a lottery ticket instead. And now a piece of software gets to scratch it off and tell him whether he wins a new engine or loses his savings. The careful buyer, punished for being careful. That is what makes people so angry they start looking at how to give the truck back entirely. Because the one thing they paid for, the confidence, is the one thing that is now gone for good. So what do you actually do with all of this, whether you own one of these trucks or you are thinking about buying one? A few things, and they are simple. First, if you are shopping, look up the exact Tundra model and year you are considering and find out whether it is caught up in the engine recall or the transmission recall. And do not take the salesman's word for it. Check it yourself. Second, if a used Tundra from these years has already been through the inspection and was told the engine is fine, understand that inspection is not the same as a new engine, and the debris that was in there is still in there. So treat that truck with real caution no matter how clean it looks on the lot. Third, if you own one, keep every service record and every piece of recall paperwork, because on the day that engine fails after being told it was fine, those records are the only leverage you will have. And fourth, do not let the Toyota badge switch off your judgment. The name that used to mean you could stop worrying does not carry that same guarantee right now, and pretending it does is exactly what the company is counting on. Toyota is going to keep pointing at its reputation and hoping the old magic covers for a new engine that has not earned it, so watch what they actually do for these owners, not what they say. Subscribe and I will keep tracking exactly what is happening with these Tundra engines and which trucks to stay away from before it ends up costing you everything you saved.